There we go. Yes. Ready.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Jeanette Roush from the New York State Department of State. Welcome to the Downtown Revitalization Initiative Local Planning Committee number 2. We'll start today by just going around the room and on the screen. Thank you for bearing with us as we get this hybrid meeting set up. And just people, if they can introduce themselves and their representative. Should we start with?
Sure. Brian DeLuca. I am the president of the East End Tourism Alliance and the director of the Long Island Aquarium.
Kira Atkins, adjunct professor at Suffolk Community College and counsel for Bell Levitt, Ms. Cole, treasurer.
I'm Richard Wine, chair of the Landmarks Preservation Commission, and a few other things.
James Farley, chairman of the Industrial Development Agency for Riverhead.
Dave Capel for the Regional Economic Development Council.
Yvette Aguiar, Riverhead Town Supervisor, co-chair, along with Dave Capel, my new-founded partner.
Steve Schauger, Director of Operations for the Hyatt Place East End and the Preston House and Hotel, President of the BID, also on the Business Advisory Committee, and resident of Riverhead.
Paul Travis, Washington Square, on the Perkins team.
Eric Bang for Perkins Eastman, we're the lead consultant.
Can we start with Edna? Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Edna White. I'm one of the committee members. I'm excited to be here. I'm part of one of the chambers in the Suffolk County community and also NAACP. Thanks so much for having me.
Kara?
Hello, everyone. It's Kara Longworth. I'm the Regional Director of Empire State Development here on Long Island.
Mark? Mark Habner?
Yeah, I'm sorry. One of the buttons not working. Mark Hubner from the Environmental Advisory Committee and NFPC. Thank you.
Carrie?
Hi, I'm Carrie McMullen-Smith. I am the director at the Riverhead Free Library.
Denise?
Lee Mendelson, member of the IDA, director on the Chamber of Commerce.
Anthony? Durante?
Hi, everybody. Anthony Durante, Senior Associate with Michael Beacon International on the Perkins Eastman.
Felicia?
Felicia Scoposa, Executive Director, Riverhead Community Awareness Program.
Julia?
Hi, I'm Julia Howe from W Architecture and Landscape Architecture. I'm on the Perkins Eastman team.
Tracy?
Tracy Stark James, I'm the Executive Director of the Riverhead Industrial Development Agency.
Peter?
I'm Peter Wander. I'm on the board of the Long Island Science Center.
Connie Lissandro, I am the president of the Riverhead Chamber. I'm on the Business Advisory Committee, Parking District, and the Antibody Task Force.
And your friend there in the background, Connie?
Yep, got the little pooches.
Okay. Aaron?
Aaron Greenbauer, Washington Square Partners, also part of the Perkins Institute.
Michelle?
Michelle
Marta?
I'm just a community member. I'm not anybody.
All right, welcome, Mark. Mary?
Hi, everyone. Mary Barkley with New York State Homes and Community Renewal.
Denise?
Denise said what is my boss.
Oh,
Hi.
okay.
She's from the local newspaper. I guess she wants to be quiet. She has a representative here.
Just,
Yeah.
covering the meeting and everything.
Just listening. Thank you.
Okay. Cindy?
Cindy Clifford, a longtime resident of Riverhead.
Sylvia?
Hi, hello, Silvia Bercher, working with Eric, part of the Perkins Eastman team.
You think that's everybody online and then in the, and then in the audience? Resi? Hi, Raising the Park, RABC member. Nice to see you.
Alex Lewis, Riverhead. Will follow along for the purpose of this meeting. Frank Messina, Riverhead Community Development Department.
Denise Annie, Empire State Development.
Anyone who's in the audience is not getting picked up on the mics.
Nicole G. Christian from Department of State, New York State team, with Jeanette Roush. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
John Radigan, resident.
Kathleen Radigan, resident from All right, thank you, everybody. And Julie, I should.
Sandra Charles, she's with me on the RDC. I'm gonna find a chair.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I just have to report at the start of the meeting that all of the code of conducts have been signed by all LPC members, and that we do not have any conflicts for today's meeting related to creating the vision and the goals. But if something comes up, we'll let you know. Now I'd just like to have the town supervisor, Squire, and Dave Capel introduce themselves and welcome everybody.
Yes, good evening and welcome everyone. This is an exciting moment in Riverhead. It's great to see such a turnout here, such a representative turnout. We have members from many of the segments of our community. It's important that you are part of this, and I understand after this meeting, we're also going to have participation from the community. This is an open process, and we're here. It's going to be a quick process from what I understand. By the end of July, everything should be in place from what I understand. And we're going to put in a lot of hours, and we're going to gather a lot of knowledge and a lot of input, and we're going to put it all together, and Riverhead is going to continue moving forward. And I'd like to introduce you to my newest partner here. Thank you, Governor. Brought us together, and we spent a little time going through downtown, looking at the TOD area, and well, it's good to meet you, and I'm sure we're going to spend a lot of time together.
I'm looking forward to it, Supervisor. Thank you. I'm Dave Capel. I'm a member of the REDC and the Supervisor's co-chair for this purpose. More importantly, I think I'm a neighbor in Greenport. I've been in Greenport for 43 years, raised my family there, and all my kids did their school shopping downtown. I still bring my vacuum cleaner to the store downtown. And I'm really excited. It's
Recording in progress.
It's been interesting watching the Riverhead process all these years, and I'm really happy to see that so strongly on the upswing now. Very pleased to be involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
To get a chair for Shirley.
Yeah.
I'll get it. Why don't you take that seat?
I got it.
Oh, nice. You got it.
You want to take my seat? You have a seat? Okay. Thank you.
Sure. He doesn't need it.
Whatever it takes.
If anybody else comes.
Yeah.
Watch your back.
Wait.
Oh, she has a chair.
Yeah.
You're literally the chair.
Co-chair.
Takes his job.
Co-chair.
So I think it's up to you.
Okay,
right?
good. We can get going today?
Yes.
All right, so Cassandra, we're gonna get onto the agenda. So, today, this is the second meeting, I think we got a chance the first meeting to introduce each other to ourselves, and then the consultant team, and to the process. And today, we wanted to really start to just have a conversation really about the town's vision and goals. Now, the town has done a lot of work, tremendous amount of work, in the application, developing the vision statement and the goals. We want to just go back and try to make sure that we're understanding the nuances. We also want to discuss the engagement plan and the public meeting and the call for application. So, one thing I wanted to emphasize is that, I know that there've been many planning initiatives, through all the various efforts that the town's been making over the past several years, and we're really trying to build on those. And in some ways, really make sure that we're filling in the gaps, identifying any gaps. We have to kind of understand what they are, number one. And then, again, this DRI project is to figure out, number one, how to allocate the funds that the town's been awarded, to make sure that we can craft a plan that identifies projects that can be leveraging that $10 million to create even more investment. So those are the two things, and I know there's been a lot of discussion about the various efforts that have been over the years. I just wanted to say that first, and I'm probably gonna have to explain it again and again, because I'm still trying to get my arms around the entire sprawl of all the great things that have been done, over the past many years. So we'll start off with the vision statement, just zip through these couple of slides here. And what we'd like to do is just go through several questions. Sandra, you can, and first we'll start off with just reconfirming the study area, which we talked about last time. I think there wasn't too much of a, questions about the study area boundaries, but, stretching from the east to Howell to Osborne and between Railroad Avenue and the river. And, it's, again, this is a compact area. It's the area that's typically described as downtown. It's pretty much the historic district. The only question I had is if it might want to go and extend past Railroad Avenue. That to me would seem like the only, maybe slightly gray area. Does anybody have any thoughts about the boundaries of the study area?
I do. If I'm not mistaken, the block to the west of Osborne Avenue, isn't that where the library is?
To the west, yes, correct.
So I would have suggested that that block should be included, for the moment, south of Railroad Avenue. Yeah.
And if I could just add, we don't finalize the study area until the next LPC meeting. We put out the call for projects, which we'll talk about, and people can propose projects that are adjacent or near the study area, and they can justify why they think the study area should be expanded to include those projects. So, for instance, like if the library had proposed something. And then we finalize it after. But it is good to keep in mind that only projects within the finalized boundary areas of the DRI can be funded. So if there is potential for something happening, or it definitely is part of the downtown, then it should, we should revisit it at this time, or between now and next meeting.
As chair of the Landmarks Commission, our historic district does extend well north of the railroad tracks, but I think that sticking to the area south of the railroad tracks, we should be concentrating our firepower in that area.
Any other thoughts? Okay, this is good. Just to, again, the application was so complete and so well thought out, but we want to make sure that we got some of these nuances. That was a good pickup on the library, and as Jeanette notes, it'll can morph and push and pull, as we kind of get a better idea of the project proposals. So what I would like to do now is go through a series of questions. Let's go to the next slide. That kind of fleshes out the vision statement. So this is the vision statement. There's a series of 5 different points that was included in the application. I'll read through these real quickly, but then I've got a series of questions to, again, flesh this out, and also just to have a better understanding of your sense of the strengths and the weaknesses, the gaps, the opportunities in the downtown. So, the vision statement was around, number 1, a vibrant, compact, walkable, dynamic neighborhood oriented along the Peconic River, okay? Second one is a regional destination and gateway to the North and South Forks. The third was diverse community, welcoming of all ages, races, and demographics. The fourth was a new recreation and cultural hub on Long Island's East End. The last was a central location for workers, families, and visitors to live, work, and play, okay? So we'll go through these questions, and we can kind of have these in mind. We want to, they might want to be changed, we're missing anything, et cetera, okay? And we've had, some conversations amongst ourselves and lots of nuance, to do with these. So the first is a compact, walkable, dynamic neighborhood oriented along the Peconic River. And so the question would be, what do you think of when you think of downtown Riverhead in terms of the image, the identity?
Well, for example, some people don't know, we have a riverfront on the other side of Main Street. And some people just decide, no, let's walk down this block, and I've heard it over and over again, and go, there's a beautiful riverfront back here. And most of our buildings are focused on Main Street, away from the riverfront. And we did take a quick walk, and we're trying to redirect the frontage of all the buildings to the riverfront. And that started with the Peconic Brewery, the barber shop that's out there was also refocused to the riverfront. And I think that should be a goal, one of our goals. I know I've spoken to the CDA, and we need to start focusing on our jewel. It's one of our jewels. And we've never seen that vision, and we're hoping, changing the dynamics.
That's great. The river is a big part of the identity, for sure. Well, it's a big part, but it's a hidden part, I guess, right?
Yes.
Thus far.
I can tell you that I've been here for 40 years, and we've been discussing this since I got here. And I've seen several visions where, in fact, the buildings on Main Street were taken down, and, people made a town square, pedestrian-friendly town square, and opened up the vista to see the river. So that's been thought about before, but somehow it's never happened.
Well, I think this DRI initiative is a key part in kind of pushing that over the hump. I think, from what I've seen, there's the concepts there, the properties there. It's interesting you're talking about the identity of the river. So we've had several meetings, and we've talking to people the last few days, and the history, I guess, the river was very much a part of downtown, right, with the logging and the oyster shacks and so forth. And I guess over time, it got oriented to Main Street, and then, this conversation is about the history. It just brought to mind that the Riverhead really has a rich history, and trying to understand the extent to which that, informs the identity, the current identity. Anybody have any thought about that? And, well, I'm looking at you as the chairman.
Well, clearly Riverhead, the name says it all, in a way. They were named after the river. But historically, the river formed Riverhead in two different ways. One, it was sorts of trade and commerce and mills and things like that brought people to Riverhead. But also, because of the geographic configuration, the way it separated the Twin Forks, and also west, crossing the river, there was only one place to cross the river, and that was what's now Peconic Avenue. And so consequently, when you look at a road map of the area, all the roads come together in Riverhead, which is one of the things that is a great asset, and an asset that can be further developed.
It's like a crossroads.
Yeah, right. Except there's like 20 roads that come together.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
Throughout the South Fork and throughout the North Fork and the end of the Long Island Expressway.
Has anybody ever thought of downtown as a crossroads?
It's the slogan of the IDA, is all roads lead to Riverhead.
Yes, it's been thought of, that's right, Jim. Yeah.
Well, another way to think about it too is why do you come to downtown Riverhead as opposed to, go other places? Obviously, your stakeholder is members of the community, and so you probably come more than the average public. But do you think like, I want to go out to eat tonight, I'm going to go to downtown Riverhead, or I want to see a show, or I want to do something with my kids, or I want to do my shopping, or I just want to go for a stroll, or or when you think about those types of things, do you think about other places in the region, or Or do you think like, no, downtown's just where I go for work, it's not where I go after work? Or, you know, when you think about downtown, Riverhead, what are you thinking of? Probably most people aren't thinking just the river, right? So what type of a community, when you think of Riverhead, what are you thinking? Are you thinking my home, my community, my workplace,
Well, one thing for sure is we have a very active bid district, and they hold many events throughout the year. For example, we have Alive in 25. These last few years, they've been breaking records on attendance, and they have Art in the Park. They have fireworks in July. They have boat races from the riverfront. And that's coupled with restaurants, which many times people do visit when they have those events. We also hold the country fair, which can draw 25, 30,000 people, and people come from all over the state. It's one of the most active fairs. And actually, why don't I let you talk about the bit, because you're the president.
Yeah, sure. Well, a lot of events, which is great to get people down to see what's going on in downtown Riverhead. Personally speaking, I think, we have a lot of, the Bones were there already, between the aquarium, the science center, you have the Vale Levitt, you have the Suffolk Theater. So, I think looking at this in a way to kind of take it to the next level and create that destination.
Yep.
And a lot of the Bones are already there, in my opinion.
Well, so let's get to the next question, which is, what do you think is strongest about the downtown?
Sure. Before we proceed, actually, two comments.
Oh, okay.
From Zuleika. That's me. I just didn't want to interrupt. Sure. Hi. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Sorry I'm a little late. I run a school, so getting up is challenging. I think when we think about the river, and I think about the aquarium, and I think about what's happening with the Children's Museum.
Okay, can they come up to the podium? Okay, if you can go up to the podium so you can be heard, Josephine, thank you. Yes, she is, Josephine.
So here, why don't we pull
So
it?
one of-
Josephine, why don't you come and sit here?
All right. You're part of the planning committee, right? So here's the mic.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll
Okay.
speak to that.
Okay,
Hello,
thank you.
everyone. Zuleika for Julian Hines. One of the things that I think about as an educator, when we look at the aquarium and we look at the Children's Science Museum and we look at the river, how beautiful it is how do we create a sense of interactivity with those three components, as well as with our student body, our youth, and how do we connect them, seeing that they're so interconnected with technology, and to be able to have them marry themselves in some way to our community that's long-lasting. And one of the things that we were discussing at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden was to create a way where there is an opportunity for them to take themselves a selfie of themselves in front of a particular fauna or flora that is happening there, and post it to the Riverhead site as a way to create connectivity. When we have the Boy Scouts come out, or when we have the cancer walk, or we have the East End Art, wouldn't it be wonderful for families to have some type of autonomy as they walk through the river to kind of say, oh, this is the birthday tree, everybody come and take a picture here, or this is where the aquarium starts, let's take a picture here, or this is where the Science Museum is going to be, let's take a picture here. Let's create some type of memory that can scaffold each other over time, so when they come back generation after generation, they can reflect on those pictures, they can see themselves as part of the community, and link all those wonderful things together. Because when you go kayaking, I don't know if any of you have tried this, but the Riverhead has this wonderful place I've never seen before, where you could put your kayak down without getting wet and roll right out. And it's like behind a place that you'd never really know is there. But when you're actually out there in the water and you see those birds, and you pass by the aquarium right there, and you see the tower during the Halloween, they have it all ready with all the ghosts and everything else, and you see each people walking back and forth, those are creating momentums. And the thing is that the next generation needs a technology sort of linkage to be able to continue that. Otherwise, I think that we may lose them, and I want to keep them here. And so I love the website, and I love the river, And I'm an environmentalist. I got an NYU Master's in Environmental Conservation Education. So I love the birds, and I love the idea of them understanding what lives here, what types of birds are there. Can we take a picture of it? Can we send it, can you tweet it to your friend? Can you put it in your Instagram? Can you like us? And can you tell your friends to come and maybe they can see this bird too, or they can see this plant too, or they can come to the Country Fest or the Live on 25 and be part of it. But how do we create that circular conversation that brings them there, connects them there, and create that stamp that becomes part of our history also in a website? So
As a goal, what I'm hearing is it's got to appeal to all the different ages, and that particular age, because when we think about families, a lot of times we think about young kids, right? You come, you go to the aquarium or whatever, but it's that middle, you know, that age that they're all into the tech, their phones are kind of glued to their brains, and that's an important thing. So it's the memories, but also we'll kind of come back to this, but technology itself, the presence of technology itself, some way, shape, or form, and I don't know what that means, but again, we're just kind of sussing out the opportunities and the issues and the gaps, maybe, so.
And that's the purpose of smart growth, is to work with the future,
Right,
regardless
right,
of age, demographics,
Right.
and to move forward and whatever we're building, that it's going to be here for our grandchildren.
Right.
And their grandchildren. And again, and that's a new initiative, and we are in Riverhead looking at smart growth in various, and we'll share them with you eventually, but that's very critical. So I agree with you. Riverhead has never really seen that. I'm sure some of the newer communities are seeing some smart growth, but isn't it one of the missions, isn't it on the mission statement for the DRI? They wanted to see smart growth? I understand.
We actually have a smart growth grant specifically. It is something that the state is pushing, but we don't mention smart growth specifically.
Okay.
So we're talking here today about what do you think of when you think of Riverhead? And it sounds like we want people to think of it as a place where they go, where there's activities for everybody. Do we think is that how we think of it today?
I think pretty much so.
There's the boat race that we have, right? That is really exciting and it brings kids out. There's the walk. There's the East End Mosaic Art Festival.
No, you have a lot of different activities.
And something that and I'm gonna just step after this last comment, is that we got used to during COVID to scan things with a QR code.
Yep.
Right? And there's no reason why in the interim part, we can have a QR code conversation where people can scan this and say, did you know that happened here?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, when you're saying smart growth, what also makes me think about is smart infrastructure.
Exactly.
Because everything is wired now, right? Everything is connected to some sensor or, Instagrammable, capability. So that's part of the appeal, I guess, to others. And I guess, one of the things, is trying to understand and get a little more insight into. That's a population group that is not always, eager to come out to these kind of meetings like this. So how to make sure that we're getting, we're hearing that. So it's good. It's great comments.
Couple of thoughts, if I may. On the practical side, if I may. As I mentioned, I live in Greenport, and Riverhead has the only shoe repair place on the east end of Long Island. Riverhead has the only combined vacuum sewing machine store on Long Island.
Yep.
Riverhead has Peconic Communications. You have a great hardware store. And these are things that I drive 20 miles from Greenport to come to. And so building on that, Riverhead really was and still has the bones of a classic American downtown, Main Street. And building on those eclectic retailers and services, I think, would be a worthy goal, because they're attractive.
And even putting that in that information, when they come into these places, we got established here, and we're the last part of, before you go to the Greenport, so make sure you get your shoes done here.
Where do you get your
You know,
shoes fixed?
exactly, you know, that is
The
great
dying art.
conversation.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Those are great conversations.
So I would, as a non-Riverhead person myself, I would add that, you know, people I think sort of further west don't think about coming out to Riverhead because there's not like a whole day that, so like linking together all the interesting things.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
You know, and sort of bringing that together, so it is more of a day rather than, you know, if you're coming out for the aquarium, you know.
That's a good point. So how do we can make this like a place where they can come and branch out? Say, you know, make this, come to the inn here, or come to have dinner here. But while you're here, you can venture to the other parts in our community and make this your home base.
Stay longer.
Stay longer.
Visit, stay, and stay longer.
Well, I would say we have to overcome the vacancies.
That's true.
So, you know, the things you point out, that there's a small group that drive those events. It's an 80-20 rule. And we have great events, and the bid and everybody that participates put on great events. But the fact of the matter is that the 300,000 people that come to the aquarium walk from the parking lot to the aquarium and go back to their cars. There's not enough to do today. Hence, having this grant, having this committee, hopefully puts us in a perpetual growth and trajectory that we can get on track, that we can be a destination, because we've been the gateway to the East End. And a lot of people will go out to Greenport. Now, he likes to come and go to the shoe store. That's great. But the fact of the matter is that 80% of the people are driving right past us and going to a downtown that's walkable, that has restaurants for lunch, dinner, bars, and waterfront. That town is a point of attraction, a point of interest. And, you know, we could talk about all the nice things that we've been doing here, but they're events, they're one-offs, and we get a ton of people that come to them. But the fact of the matter is, the steady business that needs to take place for businesses to survive, we need to collectively be together. And we've, since I've been on Main Street 17 years, we've lost more businesses than we've gained. So, you know, it's this missing on all cylinders. And, you know, this grant is hopefully going to be the impetus that's going to help get that town square into an activation level that people want to come to the downtown at any given moment.
Well, in addition to what you're saying, what has been really good has been the growth of the apartment buildings downtown, right? Having more people that are able to live downtown will help promote more walkable, more mixed-use space that people can actually then create more of the need for those restaurants and
Absolutely.
places to come.
Yeah, I'm an advocate of residents because they need to support those businesses in the downtimes
Correct.
in February to go get a burger and a beer on a
Yes,
Tuesday.
of course, of course.
So you need residents to help the businesses
To
survive.
build the downtown population, or the kind of daily population.
You know, another thought, and this is kind of, you know, maybe a little bit off base, but I don't think so altogether. And that is, the other thing we come to Riverhead regularly for is legal services and medical services. Not necessarily right downtown, although some of the lawyers, a bunch of the lawyers do have offices downtown. But, you know, I don't really have a well-formed thought on this, but how to leverage that for the benefit of downtown is maybe worth thinking about.
And you're right, in addition to that, we have the Costco, the Home Depot, the Lowe's. That still brings people out here, might not necessarily at Main Street, but it still puts Riverhead in the map.
Look at all the outlets.
And look at all the,
You have so many visitors come to the outlets and the aquarium, and, you know, but they're not making it to downtown.
Yeah,
They're not
but
making
again,
it to
they're going to the
downtown.
outlets.
Yeah.
Then they
And
get
they-
back in their car and they go right on 495. They never.
So that's a gap.
They never interact with the town. I used to own a store right next to, I used to pray that the theater would open, because
A year?
what better place to have a candy store? And I used to look at the four walls, and the only people typically that came in were asking for me to give them something or buying something. So that dynamic needs to change. And the people who did come in would say, well, you know, Main Street as a state road, Route 25, is not very pedestrian friendly. I gotta take my life in my hands. It's full of traffic. They just weren't stopping or spending any time really on Main Street.
When Tanger opened, they had a shuttle that came to Main Street.
They did.
It was part of their agreement when they came in.
So I was just told that 14 million people a year go shop at Tanger Mall? That's incredible.
Wow.
I guess you have figures on how many of them come to downtown. I mean, the next one, right? We have a
Less than
certain
1%,
percentage.
a handful.
But that said, I mean, people are buying more online and looking for experiences. And, I mean, we're talking, it seems we're talking a lot about how can we get more people who are passing through or in the region to come to Riverhead. What do the people who live and work in Riverhead need downtown that would keep them here?
Vacuum cleaners are taken care of.
That's one of my spots.
Grocery store,
Food.
Yeah.
food store.
Like a farmer's market sort of place is also very nice. I enjoy that.
Where's the farmer's market?
We have one on 105, not too far.
Okay, so, but not in the core. Yeah.
It used to be downtown.
It used to be.
I mean, so this raises a question. So the next one we had here was, what's the role of the downtown in the larger town, right? So, you know, from what I heard, it's a place for gathering, right? There's all those events. So people in the downtown and the region, they come to, you know, because there's a great setting for different kind of activities and gatherings. You know, what else? It's a place to come for culture, for, you know, music, entertainment. It's not a place to shop, right? Right, all the goods and the services are out on, you know, with the outlets and on the strip, frankly.
But that's also a matter,
Sorry, before you move on to the next question, I just wanted to read the comments that came in.
Yeah.
To the last question
Yeah.
aloud, so that they're not ignored. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name by accident. So Kathleen Beresny says, and a carousel to attract families, an ice rink in Greenport, nice to have this Riverhead, and the missing spray in high humid temps in summer. Lisa Pickersgill says, can we use any empty stores to promote pop-up stores? Marta Baumiller asks, with all these new residents downtown, where is the grocery store? Lisa Pickersgill, agree, we need a grocery store for the people living downtown. Mark Hobner, did we hear that only 1% of Tanger shoppers come into downtown? Lisa, can we have the farmer's market coming to the riverfront sometime summer, spring? Mark, there was a farmer's market in the Turkish restaurant parking lot before. Question. Okay,
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
But there is a grocery store in downtown Riverhead. However, it's a Hispanic grocery store. So I think we need to really be aware of the demographics that is also affecting or influencing Riverhead, right? You have about 6 restaurants there. They're Hispanic descent, whether they are Guatemalan, Salvadorian, or Dominican. And so you have a diversity that is definitely thriving there, because those same individuals that are thriving there are attracting the family people to themselves. As a matter of fact, just last week I went to thank you for inviting me to the Irish event, and the Guatemalan embassy was there. And the Guatemalan embassy is here in Riverhead, Long Island, because there's a presence of that constituency here. So are we saying that we don't see something because it doesn't speak to our culture? Or is it that we're not recognizing that what exists there, we may not be tapping into, right? There's a difference between that. Because if they're the ones renting the stores and they're thriving, I mean, right now, I own a commercial restaurant where I rent it out, and my tenant has paid on time for the past COVID years. And they're from Guatemala. Guatemala Embassy sends people over there, and I didn't even know that until I went to that event with you at the Irish event that was being sponsored by the Lions Club. That was the Lions Club?
Yeah, it was
The Lions Club.
But I think the grocery store, it needs to be more diverse.
Yeah, it needs to be
And it
more.
has a lot of cultural food, and I know that food, so
Yeah.
it's not, you need to be able to have the diversity. And yeah, if it thrives, it's good, but you need a mix, and you need people who are used to going into a supermarket and, you know, go into a meat section that's packed and everything, you know,
And
not
that-
just very select, it's very, very small. They sell, typical Hispanic food, it's hot buffet, and not everybody's used to that.
I know, and
I
I agree.
like Spanish food, but I like
Sorry,
any
excuse me.
food, it's obvious.
No, I
But,
definitely-
my way, but,
Sorry, I definitely agree with.
yeah, so
with you.
sometimes there has to be a medium to that, and there has to be a balance.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not sure, that that grows, because it's a grocery store, it caters to everybody.
No, I agree with you
So, yeah.
1,000%, but we can't say that there's not a grocery store. There is a grocery store that's actually targeting a constituency. And if you look at the population that lives right behind that street, it's mostly that constituency. So we gotta consider also that if we want to be all embracing, all encompassing, we want diversity, of course. We want to make sure that the food is reflective of all kinds of cultures, and that what is the culture that's thriving there? And so how do we diversify that? How do we bring up pop-up stores? I love
So
that.
I think today, that's later on for another discussion. I think what they want is to get into the vision.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, yeah, we know.
Right,
we
not
ident-
necessarily what it, right, what it, right.
Well,
what
we
its-
want a
what its
grocery
role
store
is,
there
yeah,
later
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Today is just the first meeting, and we're talking about the vision. So
But
we-
I think that a vision could be a vision for all segments of the community
Right, in general,
downtown. So we've been talking a lot about, you know, how can we attract people who are going elsewhere to come to downtown Riverhead? So here we're saying, here's a segment of downtown Riverhead. They didn't have a grocery store that served the food that they liked, so they've opened up one. Are we meeting the needs of that community? You know, could we expand on that? Could we,
Right.
you know, integrate that more into the other sort of activities that we're trying to attract?
It's also a distinguishing characteristic that makes it different from other towns. So to me, when I hear that, what I think is, well, you know, the East End is not necessarily, in terms of the general commercial districts, the East End, not the most diverse place. This is actually a place that might attract people if they realized how diverse it is, and the sort of range of offerings here that maybe is a little different than you would find in Greenport or Southampton or Patchogue, whatever, right? That should be a point of strength, I think.
Absolutely, especially, you know, you have, by having diversity, when I go to Brooklyn, I love the fact that I could eat at 5 different Thai places. I love Thai food, and I love sushi, and I get to have that diversity of food. Would it be great for people to know that we have an Indian community here that is authentic Native American, that they own the Jamaican restaurant, but the lady, the owner, is also Native American? It'll be nice to know that that diversity exists, that their culinary palate can be satisfied, because we have a culinary diverse population.
Is that something that people associate with Riverhead now? And I'm talking about both the larger town and the Forks, the region, as Paul's saying. Like, I live in Westchester, and, you know, the food's not the most exciting there. It's not. But there's a town, what's that? There's a town called Portchester.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, everybody knows if you want something interesting, you go to Portchester. And it's, you know, Westchester's not huge. It's, you know, you could probably, you know, anywhere within 40 minutes you can get there. And people do. That's a destination. And, you know, because of the diversity, right? The restaurants just kind of happened organically. That's where the people were. Is that something that, you know, as Jeanette's saying, that could be part of, you know, that's one of the things that it's got going for it, part of the identity?
I'd just like to bring up one other point. The college is also considered Riverhead, Suffolk Community College. Suffolk Community College on Smeout Road is also part of Riverhead. We have 1,000 students that come out on a normal, non-COVID basis. Right now, everything is online, but normal basis, you got 1,000 students coming to Suffolk for college each and every day. You got students who are looking for internships, they're looking for jobs. So Riverhead businesses can also reach out to Suffolk Community College students for job opportunities. You got a culture of students from all ages, range, diversity, backgrounds that can also represent Riverhead in the town.
Okay.
Just a comment from the crowd. I'm standing up so everyone can hear me. Cindy Clifford asks, can each speaker identify themselves and where they live? I guess before you speak, so everyone knows where you're coming from. And then Michelle Lynch just added, as a grandparent, I travel to shops at East Wind and Greenport for their carousels and miniature Golf in Greenport. Some small towns have a children museum, bookstore, playground for all children, including special needs, for summer, simple water sprays, tables.
Those are very nice.
So places for kids, yeah.
Kids.
Yeah. Which it has some part of that with the cultural, but it's not rounded out. To your point, you go, you wouldn't stay later, have lunch, have your kids play, you go, and then, go to the next place, so, yeah.
This is Brian from the aquarium. I think one of the things for this community, from a vision standpoint, is having, I like diverse restaurants, but I think you need attractions. You need something for people to come to. You need some type of destination that people are going to enjoy, whether it's a children's museum or it's anything along those lines, that it becomes another point of destination attraction. We don't have the density of population in this community that Huntington has, or Patchogue has, or Babylon has. And for businesses to survive on Main Street, you need a draw. You need a reason for people to come. And the Science Center will hopefully contribute to that. The aquarium contributes to that. But having those destinations, the other things will fall in line. But the general community here is not as densely populated as Up Island. And it's difficult you don't get that same foot traffic and that same buzz that those other towns. You go to Huntington on a Saturday night, it's loaded. Patchogue's loaded. Babylon's loaded. We don't have that luxury at this juncture, but they have multiple things for people to enjoy. And we have the great bones for it, but the residents, the restaurants, and attractions and things for people to come and do, whether it's a splash park or a carousel or ice skating, but another attraction, whether it's different types of museums. And I think that's what helps drive people to here, because we're competing with other towns that lend more for the consumer to come to, like a Greenport.
In Greenport, when we were designing Mitchell Park, which has a lot of similarities to the Town Square project, which I admire. Getting back to the question of the use of the waterfront, we had the same issue in Greenport. All the buildings backed up on the water. We demolished a bunch of them, just like you've done here, to create that opening. But this is a vestige of 19th century America, when the waterfront was devoted to industry and commerce and transportation, and wasn't thought of as a social or residential amenity or commercial amenity. But when we first brought the carousel to Greenport and started designing Mitchell Park, Greenport we did not have a lot of families coming to the village. And the whole gambit around the carousel was that if we could attract something that the kids wanted, that they'd drag their parents and their grandparents in kicking and screaming. And that's exactly what's happened. So I agree with you, Brian. I think, thought needs to go into, what's going to strike a child's imagination, because from that, everything will flow. At least that's been our experience out in Greenport.
So that gets to this question, and we've been talking about this through, starting with the first Instagram question, the point, and then with the shoe repair. Who is the downtown serving well, and are there people who aren't served well? I kind of get a sense that, I think we started to get to that, but any thoughts about, are we not, populations we're not serving, or populations that we're particularly, like we nailed it?
So we have obviously given the Town Square a great deal of thought, and we were thinking amphitheater would bring music. At one time, we had a very, very lively blues festivals attended by many, many people. People would come early, have dinner. So we thought that might be something that we can incorporate, along with, somebody who may be into sports. We're hoping possibly having paddle kayak races from the riverfront, which is doable. So that's a different
Like
person.
recreational.
Recreational. We were considering, and you talked about the water park. We don't have to do anything as substantial. Maybe a sprinkler area where parents can sit and have an ice cream with their kids. They don't have to spend a lot of money if they don't have it, And we even also thought about possibly the Long Island Music Museum, where people could come in and look at music and look at the history. And those 4 areas in itself, it's gonna draw people on a longer term. And lastly, for that younger population, well, my son is one of them, whose sidekick is computer. He even takes it in the shower with him. I don't know, they have these shower things that you can get in there, like your radios. An internet cafe, where somebody they're working, they have the day off with their kids, they can come in, they can make a phone call, they can check, they can have a cup of coffee. And so I think diversity as to the activities
Right.
that you have is critical, because you may want to go and have coffee in the morning, and then, take your kids, and then take them, possibly to go, it's a hot day, going home, let them get wet, it's okay. Go in and play on, in the water for a little bit, tire them out. So I think it's important to consider all age groups and see what the trends are. But these are just some of the ideas that we thought might give that connectivity that Brian was talking about before the museum, before the aquarium, after the aquarium. And then some specialty shops. Somebody might be visiting, a family member comes and visits you, and now we say, there's a specialty shop for Long Island wines that you can take back home. Or there's, some type of, bracelets made out of seashells, where people want to get gifts if this is a destination spot for them, and they're going back. And, so again, that's the shopping. We don't want big retail. We don't want huge supermarkets, because we definitely need a good grocery store that's representative of the entire community. So I think concentrating on the age and the individuals, because then you have young kids, you might have teenagers that come with you, then you have, maybe the grandparents, and they can be part of it. Then, of course, you have the Suffolk Theater. They can go see a show, walk around before, walk around after. So it's important to connect all those age groups.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the things is that why aren't those things here, right? You're saying, and that's why we have a multidisciplinary team. Maybe it's, as pointed out, it's not, it could be more pedestrian friendly, right? Maybe it's not as nice to walk around as, again, you talk about things to do in the summer. Well, we went in, when we design, we always are actually trying to design for like the winter day, like the Wednesday for the Tuesday in February or something like that. So year round, right? Because it's 3, 4, 5 months. It's not, it's easy to design for that day, right? In the spring, summer, when the weather's warm. So year round. And then the other thing is, the market and what you need to support those types of things, right? Because all those things are great, and maybe we could fix all the kind of infrastructure issues, but then it doesn't mean that they're going to come, and that's why we have Paul Travis here, who's really an expert in development and revitalization. I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about some of the insights, just on your first.
Can I just
Yeah,
offer,
sure.
Shirley Coverdale, you said a population we're not addressing. So I heard a lot of emphasis on the young people. And I'm not saying this just because of my gray hair, but I also sit on the Senior Citizens Committee. And I think intergenerational interaction is hugely important. And Riverhead happens to have a higher per capita concentration of seniors than New York City. And 1 in 3 of whom live alone. That is a recipe for unhealthiness, to say the least. And so I think something that also accommodates seniors being able to sit and enjoy the outdoors from time to time when the weather permits, and come downtown in a more leisurely atmosphere than trying to navigate Route 58 can be
Daunting.
just overwhelming in terms of the pace of traffic and crowded places. So if we're trying to make a more pedestrian friendly, more, bring people out, I think we have to also consider some things for seniors.
Can
And I just want to add, getting some wonderful feedback here, not to lose momentum, but from the previous question, we had someone mention, sorry, there's so much chat coming through. Jennifer Sinf said, no one has mentioned the Riverwalk itself, which is our unique place. And then from the crowd, we received from Marilyn Banks Winter. Okay. While she's coming to the mic, just to add to this particular question, Felicia Skokoza, teens, middle and high school students may not be being served by downtown. Edna White, teens, high school is not being served. Jennifer, people don't walk around because it's perceived as unsafe. Mark, Long Island Welcome Center, like the one on 495, may be East End products only. And then lastly, and I will let you take the mic, Michelle Lynch, also Greenport has a blacksmith shop with demonstrations by Riverhead resident Tom Barry. I believe when Greenpoint was coming up with plans, they did a contest. The aquarium is nice, but expensive. You want people to come, as was mentioned, for specialty shops and a place they can relax.
Okay.
Yes? Okay.
Hi, my name is Marilyn Banks Winter. I'm a Riverheadian. And I just wanted to offer some suggestions to the wonderful committee here. I'm sorry, I just came from the Suffolk County Chamber of Alliance. So I was speaking there and so now. But anyway, I wanted to say prior to my car accident in 2008, as the supervisor said, we did have the Blues Fest. We also had the African American Education and Cultural Festival. I was a talent agent that provided a lot of talent to the Blues Fest. And downtown was thriving. We had the Ralph Rotten stores. We had music within all of the stores. I mean, we used to share talent downtown for different events and diggers and whatever other, stores. So we need to bring more cultural events. The ethnic group that you mentioned that's not represented or that you didn't speak about was the African American community, which they come here, they visit their family members, they come and shop. We need more retail stores downtown. We need to be able to shop and store and get our clothing from Main Street. We had all of that prior to 2008. Richard has a wonderful walk museum or history walk that he's developing. We need to capitalize on that. I mean, I don't know if the goal is to present a promotion or some sort of commercial for Riverhead, but we need to make sure, we need that. Riverhead needs that. We have everything else that's promoting cars and that sort of thing, but we need a promo that talks about downtown Riverhead. I don't know if we have that yet or that has been put on the table. But as someone from Riverhead, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, to bring people downtown, we need more ethnic, more cultural, rather, events. And the AAECF, which is the acronyms of our organization, we're looking for space downtown. I'm also a trustee at the Riverhead Library. So we need to add the Riverhead Library to a promo, and also the culinary. I heard about Suffolk County Community College. We have a wonderful culinary art school on Main Street that we need to add that to the promo. So those are just my thoughts, in regards to foot trafficking on Main Street, as well as bringing the masses to Main Street.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Good stuff.
And just one more question, one more comment to add from Tracy James. There is a strong affinity to the farming and small town heritage among Native residents. A programmed, town square offering events and activities would maintain that necessary connection for the local residents, as well as providing a draw for tourists. Walkable neighborhood district.
Cool, great.
So actually, if I could just jump in here, we're always in this gray area of jumping into projects that we don't want to get into just yet. But at the same time, it seems like when everybody's talking about what Riverhead needs, you're really talking about, your vision of Riverhead is to be a more active place, a downtown that draws more people to it, a community that brings together the different populations that live here. So we want to understand that vision, and then next time we'll get into the projects, and while we're talking about that vision, we then will have to figure out how do we get there, because we can't just wish list that somebody's going to come open up a gift shop and then economically they're going to do well and stay there. We need to think. And one other thing I want to throw out there is, for instance, community in Jamaica and Queens with their DRI, they put funding into an incubator space where they have a lot of immigrants who could have a place where they start their business. So, I mean, there's different ways to think about how to activate your downtown other than the traditional retailer coming in there. But I think we're hearing a lot of make it more family friendly, give you more to do than one day, make it a place that people want to come to, both residents to do their repairs of their shoes or their sewing machines or their good lawyers, but also then have, do you have a good, somebody mentioned a internet bar, but there's a coffee shop every 2 blocks on the Upper West Side. I didn't see like a coffee place here where you could, sit all afternoon and so people aren't thinking about coming downtown to hang out. And I think sort of what I'm hearing today is that that's something that everybody in this room is saying would be a good thing if people thought about Riverhead, downtown Riverhead in that manner.
It's Brian again from the aquarium. When I think of any downtown, it's the uniqueness of once people want to go there. Why do you want to go to New Hope, Pennsylvania, or Greenville, South Carolina? It's the uniqueness that town offers. And because we're in where we are on Long Island and a diversity of what different towns offer, if we want to set ourselves apart, we have to think about what are those things that are going to make us a destination that our local residents are going to love and enjoy and be proud of, and people are going to want to come to and visit and stay over in all the hotel rooms that we have here in Riverhead. And it's that uniqueness, and to me it starts with the arts and culture. I mean, those elements are unique, and from glass blowing to blacksmiths, and the list goes on of all the things that you can offer. But I think we've got to figure out how to create uniqueness that makes this a true destination that people are proud of, that live here, and people want to come and see. And that's, I think, a priority goal for me on this committee to figure that out.
The other thing I would say that's interesting about Riverhead, particularly if you compare it to the towns it competes against, is the retail space is affordable. I think you underestimate that as an asset. So, you're going onto Main Street of any of the East End towns, you're paying $150 to $200 a foot. What is the current rent on a retail store in Main Street?
$18 here, 20?
Yeah, so that's a big gap. That's an advantage. So if I want to start a business on the East End, this is an affordable place. Again, I think part of your issue here that we could talk a lot about over the next 2 months is how do you communicate all this stuff to a broader audience? Like, I don't know if there's anyone in the East End who knows they could potentially rent a store in Riverhead for $20. Right? They don't know that. So it doesn't occur to them, gee, I
would disagree. I think they know. I think there's, but there's.
I guarantee you they don't know.
The fear is that there's not enough foot traffic.
Exactly.
Sure, but
we've had
it's
every
a chicken and
business.
egg problem.
I've had
Yeah,
the
that's a
business
whole-
from
that's
Patcho come here,
right.
the tap room and
Right.
Village Idiot, all those
Right.
restaurants came here when Parabel came.
Right.
And they all came and visited, and they knew it's a lot cheaper than Bayshore, a lot cheaper than Farmingdale. And you know where they're open now? Bayshore and Farmingdale. They didn't go with the cheaper rent, they went with the density of population and people supported their
I'm
businesses.
thinking of the other way. So you're thinking west, I'm thinking east. So I just want to, in terms of your market here,
Yeah, but the east population gets scarcer.
but there's still 300,000 of them. I mean, it's not as big as the 2 million people who live in the rest of Suffolk County, but 2 to 300,000 people is more than enough to support a downtown this size. So I think, again, I guess what I've been struck by is, first of all, what amazing assets you have. You have incredible cultural assets. You have incredible activities around you. You have those millions of people who go to Tanger, and I am one, go to Costco and Target and everything else. Those don't exist on the East End. They only exist here.
Right.
So that's a tremendous asset you have. I think part of your issue now is, how do you take all those assets and create the level of activity you're looking on for Main Street? And your Main Street really, the other thing I would say is your Main Street is unique physically. Like, there's nothing else like it out here. So I guess those are the things I've been struck by, and I've been struck by the low rents because, so I did a project many years ago on Lincoln Road in Miami Beach, and the rents at the time were $4 to $5 a foot. And everyone thought of that as a terrible thing, right? And you can imagine every landlord on Lincoln Road really thought it was a terrible thing. But what happened over time was, anyone who wanted to open an interesting store and lived in the Miami area realized, I could be on Lincoln Road. I don't have to pay, $200 to Simon to be in a shopping mall. And that created a real base. And I think you have that opportunity here.
Yeah, and
It's the infrastructure on Lincoln Road that makes that place tick, though.
Now,
Yeah.
but not when we started. When we started, it was about 70% vacant. There was nothing around.
But you had the central wall on the road, right?
Which people wanted to take out and replace.
It ended up being the jewel.
And the jewel, exactly. So I guess what I think is, you really are at a unique point in time that I think, you have so many assets here. And, I think as everyone's talking about, like, who's your market and how do you attract them, and how do you communicate, I think, to your market?
story of that.
What's here. I live in Southampton. About a year ago, I had to get my driver's license switched. I went down the wrong street, and I thought, oh my God, there's a river here. Like, I never knew. I live close by. I'm here all the time, for my driver's license, for Social Security, for the outlets, for the shops, for whatever. I think you underestimate the extent to which your market has no idea
If I
what
may,
actually exists in Riverhead.
if I may interject, that some of that came out of here. I like the idea of the glass blowing.
Right.
I like the idea also of being able to know how to do a blacksmith. When I do team building, I had 50 staff members at one point, and one of the things we did is that we went to the Brooklyn kitchen to learn how to make pasta. And then we ate together, and then we had an experience together. My girlfriend just did something together that was having to do with painting and sipping, something dealing with painting an art piece while you sip, and they will bring a Van Gogh, or they will bring another artist, and you work together. So we got to think also in terms of, even though we don't have the population yet, how do we attract them here? These kind of experiences that can happen throughout the week, maybe discounted over the weekend, that can show somebody how to do something that is from farming. Because right now, the lavender field, I don't know if you've been, I live around the lavender field. That lavender field only has lavender. It charges people now $10 to just walk the field. And it has a beehive that they just started this summer. And it's always, people will drive from my business is in Brooklyn, from Brooklyn, just to come to the lavender field, and they will spend the day roaming around and go back. So I do feel, imagine if you could take some of that lavender and learn how to infuse it and make lavender oil, lavender soap, and have an experience at the same time, like the pop-up, sorry, my name is Zuleika, like the pop-up tent that someone else mentioned, and then you can have experiences that people can actually register for online. And they can follow that particular guest, or they can follow that particular artist. Or I know people that follow musicians around that are not mainstream, that may be at Digger's that day, or can be at another restaurant another day. So I think that these pop-up musicians and these pop-up art experiences, bringing in the cultural diversity of the community, will attract people that eventually would want to make this their home and stay here and be here and make that experience for the next generation. Because then that child will remember, oh my God, I had a really good time at Riverhead. Maybe I won't live there full time, but maybe I'll go there during my college days, or maybe I will spend my summer there. And little by little, you're going to start changing the tide. So I like the idea of that incubator space where people can come together and come up with ideas or work together on a project or have a team building together or
We
just
have an
sit?
incubator in Calverton.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, but in downtown,
Downtown,
I'm talking
yeah.
Main Street, yeah.
Part of the mix. Okay, you know what, this is like a great conversation. We didn't even need my questions.
But it needs to end, is that what you're saying?
But,
Well, yeah. But I'm gonna keep it going for, but we have a couple items I want to get through. But
Yeah,
let's
we
keep
gotta
going.
get
Just
to
a
it.
couple of last things.
Those
yeah.
details.
Jim Farley. Just conceptually, where are we headed here? Are we heading towards destination projects that generate footfall, or are you suggesting that retail can generate footfall independently? Because there's a lot of interesting business ideas being discussed in terms of conceptually what we can achieve, and but the question is, we're trying to generate footfall, not for a particular item, but on a generic, full-time basis for the cross-section of Main Street
What I'm
of
gonna
businesses.
suggest is that it's neither. It's neither.
Well,
No, all right, here's where I'm going. So you're talking about Lincoln Road, you're talking about what makes it unique. It's the quality of the environment that you have. It's different. That's the different thing. And, you know, all these things are gonna change, right? Paul and I worked together for a long time on different projects, and the thing that you think you start off with is not the thing that you end up, because the markets change like every, I don't know, 10 years or something like that. And the internet cafe, it's kind of already, you know, there's gonna be the next thing, right, and the next thing, and you can't anticipate it. So if you're banking all around one destination or one business, you're making a bet. But if you're creating and you're really taking what you have, right, you got the river, you got this great street, you got the history, and it's walkable, but it could be more walkable, right? The businesses will come, right? You gotta encourage them, you have to encourage the right ones, but it has to go together. That's what I'm saying. I wasn't trying to shoot it down, I'm just saying.
No, I'm just.
It's another way to look at it. That's
I'm
all.
just trying to figure out where grant money goes, though, in the
Yeah,
sense that, I mean, if we wanted to fund the rebuilding or the establishment of a new cultural institution, you have to look at the whole business plan and everything, and what's that gonna generate? And
Right.
at the end of the day, while we wanna see a business plan in effect that we think can stand on its own two legs and is worthy of a grant, there you go. The flip side of the coin is, in evaluating that project, if you will, how much are we looking to what that project's gonna do for the rest of the community?
Right.
And how do you balance that? You know, so
if
we talk about the cultural institutions we have, that there's some suggestions at the table that perhaps we need to add a few more to get the mix right.
So if I may, about
Yep.
the money.
Well, yeah, sure.
The state doesn't come in having any any idea where the funding is going to go. But we do have criteria.
Sure.
And one of the criteria is that the funding goes towards implementing the vision. So if the vision is all about, we want this to be a destination so people can come here and spend a day, and then the projects are like, we want to fix up the local library and this street and this housing complex over here, that's not gonna match your vision. So the vision has to be broad enough, but specific too, to say, where do you wanna focus? Now, the other thing though, is we have criteria, there has to be a project partner who can front the money that we reimburse. Now, we have done things with nonprofits, with local community organizations, like I'm talking about the incubator space, some really creative stuff, and we've done some funding with, developers who are well experienced. So there is some flexibility there, or a lot of projects end up being with the Public Works or Department of Transportation or something, department like that. But so it's kind of a gray area of your vision, but not your wish list of projects that really aren't feasible.
Right.
But the vision that I'm hearing of downtown is you want to activate it 24 hours. Or is it, no, we just want it to serve the community, and on weekends, we'd like to have some people from out of town come in and have some extra cash, to supplement the income, the books of businesses so they can survive? Or is it that we have a number of pockets of different community members here that we're really not serving. And, we talked about culture and the historic culture of music or the existing culture of the Hispanic, that they're already supporting businesses that they started on their own. Should we try to bring those more in so that on the Tuesday night, we have people who are walking downtown who aren't just coming to spend a day and see one concert or something? And so it's, the vision is we're trying to understand where the town really wants to go. And so ultimately, when the portfolio projects are submitted to us, which should be more than $10 million, because they're not all gonna work out, and we have to somehow match them together to make them fit the funding available, that we say, these are the best projects that meet the state goals, will work towards implementing the vision and really, sparking more investment into the downtown. So,
That's a
segue.
David.
I have one more thought before we move on, and that is that the other big piece of the puzzle downtown is the street itself.
Yep.
And it's a terrific street. It's wide, but in that is a problem because it's, just speaking for myself, it can be a scary place to cross. It also lacks a lot of amenities that you might like to see on the street, in terms of seating and planting. So I'd like to suggest that one of the things we might do is think expansively, even radically, about how that street is used and how it could be more of an asset to the downtown than it is now. Right now, it's just basically a traffic generator.
So a lot of communities do what they call complete streets, which really is looking at a corridor for all users, from the building edge to the building edge. So you have space for people to sit if you're waiting for a bus or a bike path or parking or street lighting or street signage, but all users.
Wider sidewalks, if that's what you're.
Yeah, or even how the street's used, look what they've done in some other places. I don't want, it's always a little risky to compare to New York, but look what's happened in New York with the way they think about streets. These are the busiest streets, arguably some of the busiest streets in the world, and they've disrupted traffic, very strategically in certain places to great effect. Whether that's something that should be considered here or not, I don't know, but I throw it out.
It's a good idea.
Do you have outdoor seating in summer?
Joe Mayorana.
On the Main
I
Street?
just wanted to say something.
Not enough.
I think certainly we've heard a lot of fantastic ideas today, but I think part of it is a little bit been repetitive based on the prior engagement for the Riverhead Town Square. I think a lot of the multicultural attractions, temporary events, certainly the small business incubator type spaces, to have a continually activated town square, the town's vision to reclaim our waterfront, move a lot of that parking from downtown to the railroad station area for the transit-oriented development. I just want to not lose sight of the engagement that's already taken place. I mean, I did field 2 phone calls in the office this week, this morning actually, following some local press about these meetings. Basically, the people were asking, why did I participate last time if you're kind of restarting everything?
Yeah.
And I understand that the state has a process, and we fully respect that process, but I think both in the application and consistent with 30 years of prior planning, I think the town's vision to reclaim our waterfront for everybody, for all cultures, and the town square is very special. It presents an opportunity to have special events where you can do every imaginable community that lives within Riverhead can be respected, and there'd be ample opportunities. I mean, I think we're going to be working hard to have that activated. So there's so much activation that has to take place that we can easily do things to everybody. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That ties into
sorry.
the next two things on the agenda, which I gotta get to.
Okay.
So, which are the call for projects, which Jeanette's alluded to, and then engagement, which I think really is, we want to have a discussion with some of the time that's left on that, because, you know, we're very conscious of the work that the town's done. We want to make sure that we're complementing, not, you know, duplicating, right? Or repeating. So, in terms of the projects, so all this boils down to is, you know, the projects that will be funded, and then how, you know, the projects can be leveraged to create more investment, draw more investment. So there's 4 types. I'm just going to go through this summary real quick, just because there's several guidelines, and I want to make sure everyone's kind of on the same page with this. So one is funds can go to new development or rehabilitation of existing buildings downtown within, again, Jeanette said, within the study area. The second is public improvement projects. So, you know, when this whole thing about, you know, businesses and destinations versus the public realm, both of those are on the list, right? Grant funds or revolving loan funds, those are things that might not be taken care of on a single, you know, project per se, but you may want to sustain it, or you may want it to be broader than just one project. The fourth thing, and this is kind of interesting because it gets to a lot of, I think, a common thread in everybody's comments is branding and marketing, which is that, you know, I think there's an awareness thing, right? Everything is there, people may not be aware. That's people in the town and the region of South Fork, North Fork, but also businesses, they may not be aware. Maybe they are. Maybe they're aware that there's cheap space, but maybe they're not aware that there's all this residential construction going on, you know, that type of thing. So those are the 4 main types of projects. Then there are things that are not eligible. So planning, more planning, not eligible, we're moving forward, right? Pre-award costs, so all the work that you do to get the award is not eligible. Operations and maintenance, not eligible. Training and program expenses, not eligible. Property acquisition, not eligible. So that's just kind of a guideline. Jeanette, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. Then the size and the scale, we go to the next slide. You know, there is a minimum, which is 100,000, and then if it's residential, it must be more than 8 units, and it must include an affordable component. You know, as Jeanette mentioned before, there's stipulations on the match for privately sponsored projects. So the DRI can be no more than 40%. For public and nonprofit sponsored, you know, leveraging the funds is encouraged. And then there's a decarbonization. This is just a general kind of underlying all the projects, which is they must meet stretch energy codes and exceed required energy standards, okay? So I'm going to keep going. Jump in at any time. Evaluation criteria, Jeanette alluded to them, but it needs to be aligned with the states and the local goals, and it needs to have been strong community support. That's why we're having 2 more public meetings, is to kind of air, you know, what do you think about these, right? The projects that come. Is it ready, right? So it needs to be poised to proceed in the near term, and you know, it's not, these aren't for long-term things that, you know, we want to actually, these are the grants that'll make the difference in pushing a project over the hump. It needs to have it'll be judged on whether it has a catalytic effect. So will it have a larger impact than just the institution or the business, you know, at hand? And that kind of ties with co-benefits, which is, you know, can it do 2 things at once, right? So if we're talking about improving, let's just say, park or environment by the river, that could be for recreation, to the supervisor's point, but it could also be for economic development. It could attract people, build businesses around it. It could be for the environment, right? It could have features that, you know, mitigate and address the stormwater and flooding and things like that, or attract natural, you know, native species. So there are projects that can do a lot of different things. Those are going to score higher. And then finally, cost effectiveness. And that kind of speaks for itself, right? So you know, the document for the call for projects it's live, it's on our website. There's an online application form, the due date's on the 20th. And so, now's the time, so it's this is going to be an interesting period. Everyone's kind of forming their project applications. We will set up means there might be a lot of questions along the way. And we want to make sure that, people are kind of, have a good understanding so they're not tripped up on any one particular thing, okay?
May I?
Yeah.
So I don't want to take I want to make sure that the comments are addressed, but in case they're out of context, some are from before we started this particular topic. Friendly reminder, if you haven't signed in, please sign in so I have your email. Okay. So Michelle Lynch, also any designs should reflect any aesthetically pleasing look, like a Newport Cape Cod design in patchwork stores have several signs designed to choose from. Kathleen, there was a nice coffee shop that in the evenings, music, poetry reading, and just to enjoy an afternoon or evening owned by the Reeve couple. Edna, that's right, affordability for vendors to come in. Mark, we flew by the word pride, which should be in the vision statement. Michelle, parking, perhaps diagonal parking on one side and limit large commercial trucks off of Main Street. Mark, Greenport was such a pleasure during COVID with only one lane of smelly cars passing the restaurant tables in the street. Tracy, Joe said it all. Michelle, as a recreational boater, there should be electric and water on during boating season to bring boaters to downtown. Ike Israel, and Ike, you had your hand up, so if you wanted to say something, I apologize. I just noticed it in the corner there. Under the ineligible projects, does that include the municipality, town of Riverhead? I specifically meant, could the town purchase property with the money?
So on the purchase of property, the funds cannot be used specifically to just purchase property or to build a parking garage. But if there's a public-private development that's looking for some public money, and part of the project includes the purchase of property, as long as that's paid for other funds, not the state dollars, then it's permitted.
And we own the town square area. I mean, we have site control. And that's so critical for any project to develop. You need your site control. We have the site control. We also have our sewers. We're one of the fortunate towns in the East End. We have our sewers.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. It's huge. And we have site control. And so it's a lot easier. And that's, I think, one of the reasons we're moving so forward so quickly is that we have site control, so we were able to get those buildings. We were able to take them down. I don't know, do you want to add, Dawn is our expert concerning downtown and economic development, because this area is within an economic development and zone. So did you want to add to this, Dawn?
I'm enjoying listening to everyone's thoughts. I love to hear different points of view. I think everything that's been said has a lot of great validity, and I'm encouraged. I think the projects that we have been working on are really set up to address those comments. I think we really I feel good.
Good.
I think we nailed it a little, so I'm happy. But thank you all for.
Is the CDA proposing any projects?
Who's this?
That was
This
how
is-
like Ike.
It's like,
Ike, can you repeat that, please?
I'm in the wall on the.
I'm on the wall. That's so funny.
I'm not surprised with all the buildings you own.
There you go. Is the CDA proposing is the CDA our conduit for residents to say, hey, we need to add street lighting, or we want to see cameras? I mean,
Yes.
is that?
I would say that, I guess I'll go to Mike because I'm not gonna.
Well, I can address that partly. So there's different ways that we solicit projects, and there's different ways for the public to be involved. The call for projects really is for projects that already have a project sponsor out there, or the person who actually can do a project. If you're just want to throw out ideas that, for instance, if 30% of the community came to a public meeting and said, what we really need is a town bus shelter here, then we would go to the community, the town here, and we'd say, hey, have you guys thought about putting a bus shelter here? You know, maybe that should be one of the projects. So then, if we were to move forward on that project, the sponsor would be the local towns. I don't know what the CDA is,
Community Development Agency, so the agency is a public authority, and it actually owns the properties that.
right. So, you know, we will work to flush out the projects, but some of them at the end of the day just aren't doable with these funds. That doesn't mean that they're not good projects. They just don't match the criteria of the state funds that are going forward. And we're not starting this process all from the beginning and ignoring all the community work that has been done to date. I just want to re-emphasize that. The way the DRI process works is first revisit the vision and goals that was submitted in the application. We open it up to the public and the local planning committee members to give us any additional input, or you know, you have a little more time now to think about it. Your application has won, you know, a suggestion, maybe we should look at this area, or we overlook this. We open it up to the public, so the public can, you know, oh, I didn't realize this was going on, or I participated early on and then I just assumed it was getting implemented, or I just want to emphasize I really still believe the same thing, or I think you might have overlooked this. We do the call for projects, we sift through them, we try to find projects that have a lot of meat that really can happen and work through, and at the end we submit a portfolio of projects to the state, which includes, most likely, unless for some reason they don't qualify, the projects that were in the application, as well as any additional projects. So nothing is lost in the process that we're going forward. We're building off the process that has happened to date, and that's one of the reasons that it's going so well, is because the town has done so much outreach and so much work before they even got to this stage. Not all communities are as advanced as this community is at this early stage. So you should recognize that and pat yourself on the back.
And her team, Dawn Thomas and her team.
So one of the other pieces that we have to do as part of the state requirements is the state really pushes the community and the consultants and everybody to try to do as much engagement as possible. As I said, you guys have already done a lot of engagement, but so it's a task of the consultants to present to the LPC the engagement that they propose. Like I said, other communities have not done as much engagement as you. We do have some basic requirements, like the 3 public meetings. So we do need to present this, which I'll hand it back over to Eric.
So being very conscious of that, and I think the big thing is, you know, you all heard the term planning fatigue, right? And, you know, oh, I spent, Thursday night, last year on this for 4 hours, sat through a meeting, and why do I have to do this again, right? It seems like the same conversation. So we want to make sure that we're not duplicating that, right, or repeating that, things that you've done already, because, you know, it's not only kind of, it frustrates people, but it can undermine confidence, right? You guys are moving forward. You don't want any perception like we're taking a step back. So we want to really, I think, complement and maybe fill in any gaps, so rather than, again, to repeat. So, you know, we just kind of put together a real quick sequence, you know, just to kind of, right, what have you done already, right? You got the website, you did the town square, keep going, you did the BOA, you did all sorts of creative exercises, so we don't want to do those again. It's too bad, because some of them are very effective, right? And again, to this point, you know, you're showing forward momentum, so you want to, we need to very clearly communicate. This is about, you know, allocating the money to push these things forward that you are on the cusp of. You've done all the planning, you know, you've done all the outreach, number one. Number two is, you know, can we fill any gaps that are, you know, that we maybe haven't, identified, within the 10 million. So, let's keep going through this. This is just a recap of, highlights of what you've done. So robust online, through the, particularly through the last couple of years. So what we've started with is one-on-ones, and so we've got a list of 19 stakeholders. And the ones in blue are the ones, actually, I think we contacted more than those, right? That we've already reached out to, we have appointments set up, or we met with them already. And so we're gonna do them in Zoom. Today we did, several, because we were here. And, look at this, we'll circulate this. If there's others that you can think of, please let us know. Okay. We are planning on doing an online survey. We haven't quite figured out what that wants to be, and we want to, we want to do this with you, so we didn't want to come out, have an idea, oh, we tried that already, or that's not going to work. So we want to do this as a collaborative thing with the committee. So online, as Zuleika pointed out, to have, the certain population, they live there, right? So it doesn't exist unless it's online. So that's another thing. So I wanted to pause here for a second, see if there's any suggestions, thoughts.
Well, I guess part of COVID, because it changed our world and our life and the way we conduct business, so we did, the town of Riverhead, start conducting surveys online. So we are using SurveyMonkey, which is a very respectable company. I actually did my PhD using, and a lot of people do use it. We use SurveyMonkey. So it is respectable. We subscribe to it. We do take surveys, and we are able to already link it to our website. So that infrastructure and IT is already in place in that regard.
One thing that we did, think of was that, you've done a lot of, these various activities, and I think you've got a good representation, would be the younger, and this, I think this just reinforces what I've been thinking today's conversation, the younger population. Maybe school age, but not too young school age. They have to kind of understand what it's about. But
You could take SurveyMonkey link and link it to a QRS code, right? And so wherever the kids are, you can kind of give them a QRS postcard, so to speak. And have them participate through that process too, in order to get, what would they like to do downtown Riverhead, just to get some of that. Have they ever been to the aquarium? Would they like to go to the Science Museum? And just this weekend, Channel 12 plugged in that the Science Museum is coming to downtown Riverhead. So that was really kind of cool, how the word is already getting out. So just by getting that QR code, even into the local restaurants, to have them, hey, link in here, will help provide that kind of conversation. I don't know if it's bilingual or not. I don't know, 52 or 53% of the Riverhead students are Hispanics.
Okay.
That's because I did my SDL, my school district leader license during COVID, and that was my school of study. So we want to be sure that we also keep that in mind. Also, we have the elderly. I wasn't aware, so thank you for that information, that so many of them were living alone. And so maybe plugging into a way to contact them and find out how we can, what are the ways that they would like to get to downtown? Would that be a bus that circulates on the weekends? Would we close the streets? I like what you said about closing the streets from New York City. Maybe you would just close it on Saturdays and Sundays and make it a family day, that people just have to circumvent Main Street to get to where they're going, but there's parking to get to it. But going back to the survey, the QR code can
Well,
get
these
you
are good.
there.
So what I'm hearing is seniors and younger, youth, but I'm going to throw this back to the town as to whether you feel that complements, again, rather than duplicates the efforts that
Yeah.
you had.
Also, we have a group of, I think a decent-sized group of high school students coming down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally, when projects that I've done where we engage students, I find it very invigorating because they bring a lot of energy and they're a little bit more open, so.
I believe we are second in Suffolk County. We have the second highest senior population. We have at least 14 communities, and I'm glad the the Reverend Coverdale is something that we always need and we work with very closely. We have a very, very engaged senior center. We have a great communication. We have a great communication with them. Unfortunately, they are not technology savvy, some of them, a good part of them. And so we have our ability through town, we have the ability to reach out to them.
So that may be.
And it won't be through an online survey.
Right.
But we, and again, that's something that we worked on, is how to reach all the different populations. We also have a CAP program, which, works with children and identifying areas to teach and train. They're in our high school. They're very, very actively involved in the community. And I would suggest, and when we have to, we will reach out to CAP. Okay, she's here. We included that person. It was one of our choices to include. I know you guys had your inclusions into your, who you wanted. And we made sure, and she was ecstatic, that we included her. And she is online from what I'm told. Felicia, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Do you want to say a few words? Welcome.
Oh, hi. Yes, we'll be happy to help in any way.
Okay. So here you have your youth, and she knows how to reach out. Very, very active, very smart, understands the community, and then the senior population, we're able to definitely reach out to them.
That's two that I'm hearing that could actually fill out the picture a little bit, and they clearly have different needs of being communicated. The youth might be the online, and then the seniors where you're gonna use the town channel and go to them. So this is great. Okay, so one-on-ones, please let us know if there's any that, you'd suggest. The targeted, which I think we got some great ideas today. And then the third kind of leg of the stool is these public meetings. So that's just to be kind of out and above board. Anybody can come. Everybody's hearing the same thing at the same time. And the first one's tonight. It's you're welcome to come. I don't think it's mandatory, right? They didn't sign, that wasn't part of the thing that you signed on the, but the discussion's gonna be the same discussion that we just had on the vision, which I thought was great, and I didn't realize we were gonna have so many people from, for the public calling in, but we need to have this, because it really fills the picture out for us, and it helps us in our work in evaluating the projects, and, trying to, develop the planning framework for them. Again, a lot of these discussions have been had, but we're hearing all this for the first time, and I think that it seems like there might be different nuances that are coming out. So the next one would be in May. We're right now it's Suffolk Theater TBD, right? We're working on it, but that was the idea, was to get out to the downtown. Why not be like right in the downtown, right? You step out after the meeting and you see the town square, right? And the street. So that'll be to talk about the revitalization strategies and some of the project ideas. By that time, the call for projects will be complete. We may try, to break out so we can hear people, when, standing up, and the speeches, we're trying to avoid that. And then sorry, it's just my experience. And then the last meeting will be in July, and we're thinking that, wouldn't it be great to do something outdoors? We've got to work on that too, because there's all these, there's some public access requirements, so there might be some things that we have to work around, but, why not, again, get people outside, the weather, and they can see the river and all that, so. And then that one will be to present the draft plan essentially, because by that time in July, we'll have that drafted up, we'll have the projects identified, and, but, we want to get, any last.
I have a question on
comments,
this is Brian from the aquarium, and the call for projects. How is that communicated? Who normally responds to those? Is it in a close proximity to this town, or can someone from another county, another state?
So the project, we're asking for projects that are within or in close proximity to the boundaries that were proposed within the DRI application.
Sure, but the person that's submitting or suggesting a project, they can come from anywhere.
course.
if they own property or they have an agreement or jurisdiction, you know, they have a letter of intent
Okay.
or something. I mean, we're not, we don't, it's not like we're putting out an RFP to develop a piece of property, you know?
Okay, so it's existing stakeholders, property owners
Yeah,
that are then,
or community groups or
okay,
the town.
okay. So they all are well aware and preparing.
Well, actually, you know, one of the things that we ask of the local planning committee members is to help get the word out, so, you know.
Brian, we put out a press release this week regarding that. It's on our website. And so the word is out.
I think to the DRI website, we'll have it listed on there, and that's live now, right?
Yes,
Yeah. So, there.
and we have a Twitter account, we're pushing this out in multiple ways, Cassandra, right?
Yes, I'm just trying to get the screen essentially.
And then, and we'll talk about it again tonight's meeting, so folks who come out. So we're trying to get out in multiple ways, but, you know, you guys are all kind of ambassadors for this, you know.
Can we just inform the public that this is a website that's being hosted by you and put onto our website? So they might be asking us questions or tell us, put this up, we've already got that. Or, so this is a site that we're hosting from the DRI committee.
Distinguish it.
So they don't get
Yeah, got
confused
it.
and say, the town is not doing this.
Yeah,
and-
yeah, yeah.
And this is their process.
Why don't you have this on, something
Yeah,
like
right,
that.
exactly. So, you don't say, why don't you have this and you include that person? This is a very collaborative effort, but it's hosted by them and we're putting it on our website. But they're also opening off that if we want something in there, we want some change, and if it makes sense, they're gonna do it. So, but it's hosted by the DRI committee.
Okay, good. Anything else? There's a lot to think about
So,
today.
so usually the public comments at the end of the LPC member meeting, it's not during it, but we've had so few, public members here today that some of them did speak, but if there's any public meetings on the website, we can invite them now if they have any comments.
So, well, we've got through all the comments. Kathleen just added surveys through, is it PTOs? Is that what you meant to write?
Survey monkeys of this.
Survey Monkey.
Okay, well, that was her comments. Otherwise, we've captured all the comments, but if anyone wants to speak up now. Ike, your hand is still raised, so I don't know if that's another comment, or,
He would still keep it raised.
okay. But if anyone else wants to say something?
And then we're gonna reconvene at 6 o'clock
Yeah.
for the second part of this meeting, which is a public hearing, again, which is directed by this process, and it'll be open to the public.
So we reviewed, I guess, talked about the vision a little bit, right? And that's going to happen with the public tonight as well, right? So is the goal to revisit that at our next meeting to finalize that? How does that process work?
So we're gonna take everything that we heard, we're gonna, look at the vision statement and the goals as were submitted in the application, and just, we will, as a team, kind of get together once you're here, and the town's team and DOS, and, modify, revise accordingly, and then we'll come back to you all to just verify, right?
We probably will circulate that
Yeah.
before
Yeah,
the
that'd be
next
helpful.
local public
Yes.
planning committee meeting. Also, at the next one, we should have the consultant's district profile.
Right.
We'll probably circulate some of that, and at the LPC, talk about general overall trends you might be seeing. We don't want to go into too much detail. It's mostly based on information that you have done over the past, but bringing us up to speed. I forget the exact dates. We probably won't have the list of the projects that have come in yet, but we'll have some sense of what some of them that are coming in, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And we'll finalize the project boundaries. And in the meetings after that, we'll get much more into the project details.
Now, with the list of stakeholders that you had that you were reaching out to, what's your goal and to be completed with that? Is that by like our next meeting or?
As soon as possible,
Okay.
yes. And maybe some of them will be able to combine some people into one group.
Yeah, we've already done like 6, I think.
Wonderful things about it.
And I should also say that, in other DRI communities that are happening now, sometimes a couple of the LBC members want to talk to the consultant team about a specific area or something, and we're open to that as well. Sometimes it's like 3 or 4 people want to talk specifically about culture, about transportation, or something like that, just because we're cramming so much in such a short period of time. And then at the LPC meetings, we just can relay what was discussed. So, any other questions?
Okay, I think we're
Thank you,
closing
everybody,
this
for your
part of the
afternoon.
meeting. And we'll see everybody back at 6 o'clock in an hour.
So tell me your first name again.